You asked what happens when a driver gets put out of service for failing an English test. The answer is they continue to drive that truck until they take somebody's life.
What's going on, Mutha Truckers? Welcome to Mutha Trucker News. I've had a lot of truck drivers share this information to me, so definitely want to shout out this channel, Kimberly Bartold. I remember she did go by a different TikTok name before. There was a video where she was at a shipper, I recall, where there were about 3 drivers or 4 drivers in one truck, and they hit her truck. And so I remember that situation. And so she is letting America know that this is a major problem. You know, we've been talking about how America has been fighting very hard to put non-English speaking drivers off the road and putting them out of service. But the question still lies, what happens when a driver does not pass the English proficiency test, you know, and they're put out of service? What happens after that? And so she's here to tell her truth. And her truth is that she got hit by a driver that got put out of service for not being English proficient. And that driver that got put out of service still jumped back in the truck and hit her truck. And so she's here to explain that today. So definitely make sure to follow her on TikTok. That is her main platform, I believe. And she wanted everybody to share the information. So I'm glad to do it on Mutha Trucker News. But yeah, this is big. This should be on all news channels. And I hope that it gets there because this is powerful. You know, it's great that we do put all these drivers out of service that do not pass the English proficiency test, right? Because it's important to read road signs and to be able to communicate with law enforcement. But if it's just going to be a slap on the wrist, put out of service, and then after that, they're just going to jump in the truck and drive anyways, does that really fix the problem? So hear this here. Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate you. Thank you for putting this message out. And this is all for the Mutha Truckers and all truck drivers. Please share this video.
Oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm on the side of the road. Why am I on the side of the road at 7 o'clock in the morning? Because the truck driver just hit me. He just hit me intentionally. He came into my lane and hit me, and then he fled. He fled. I had to chase him for miles. I had for him to finally pull over when he realizes he can't outrun me. He pulls over, and he doesn't speak a word of English. Not one word of English. Not one. Not a single word of English. Gotta use the translator app. And I'm like, I haven't even looked at the damage on the truck right now because I can't, man. I can't. I had to chase him down. I'm just trying to do my job, America. I'm trying to do my job so that you have food, so that you have clothing, so you have medicine, so you have cars, so you have everything that you need to live. Us American truck drivers are doing everything we can. We risk our lives every day. These people come here from God knows where, and they put our lives in danger so that you have the shit that you need. Show you guys this. The point of impact was dead set over the tandems, and the point of impact goes all the way there. Never stopped. And then as far as the force of the impact, this is steel. You see how far in that's gouged? How deep that is? I can fit my finger in there. So, you know, that's all messed up. I'm gonna try to see if I can't bend this back out so I can drive, but my mirror's totaled. I mean, it's totaled. I fall all the way off. I'm flashing my brights. He knows damn well he hit me because the second I come back, he swerves back into his lane completely. I'm flashing my lights. I got my hazards on. You know, he doesn't stop at first. I get past him because the truck in front of him is slower than him, so I get alongside him and I'm pointing. I'm like, yo, Paul! You know, I'm pissed off at this point. He backs off. He gets behind me. I pull onto the shoulder. I almost come to a stop, and all of a sudden, he comes whipping around me. He pretended that he was going to stop, and then he took off to flee the scene of the accident. But he don't realize that I was going to chase his ass, and I chased his ass for miles. And he finally, when he realized he wasn't going to be able to get away from me, he pulled over onto the shoulder, gets out of his truck, doesn't speak a word of English, has to use a translator on his phone, doesn't understand a single word. He doesn't even know the word police. Like, I had to say policia so he'd understand what I'm talking about. I think he speaks Spanish. So you know, and he's using the translate, asking if I will just take a payment, if he can just pay me for the damages, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I already called the cops. I called 911. It was a hit and run. It was a hit and run, and he was fleeing the scene of an accident after we already attempted to stop, and then he pretended he was stopping just to bail. So the cops here, it's an Indiana state trooper. I asked him if he's DOT certified. He said that he is. So he's not. The cop just walked up to give me my paperwork back. I got to figure out how to bend this mirror back so that I can actually see to safely drive. Otherwise, I can't even merge on the interstate because I can't see if there's traffic. He said he's DOT certified, and I said, does Indiana enforce the no English speaking thing because that's requirement? And he says, yeah. So he's doing a level 3 on the driver right now. Important video I've probably ever posted here on TikTok when it pertains to the trucking industry. For a long time, a lot of you have been asking what exactly happens to a truck driver when they're placed out of service by DOT for failure to speak or understand English. What exactly happens after that? I now have definitive proof of exactly what happens to a truck driver when they're placed out of service for failing to speak English, meaning their CDL is invalid. As some of you are already aware, this morning I was hit by another truck driver out on the roadway. The truck driver attempted to flee the scene of the accident. I chased him down and he pulled over onto the shoulder behind me, pretending that he was going to stop, but when I came to a stop, he whipped around me and tried to flee the scene of the accident a second time. I continued to follow him, and when he realized he wasn't going to be able to lose me, he finally pulled over onto the shoulder. At that point in time, I confronted the driver and identified immediately that the driver doesn't speak a single word of English and relies solely on translator apps on his phone to communicate. So this is the trucking company's DOT number, 3282075. October 12th, literally last month, a truck driver was placed out of service at this trucking company for not being able to pass the English proficiency test. The license plate to that truck is ZP41982. The license plate of the truck that hit me is ZP41982. 1 month ago, this driver was placed out of service by DOT because they failed to pass an English proficiency test, meaning their CDL was no longer valid until such a time that they could understand and read English. Yet despite that, 1 month later, they cause an accident on the roadway. And as you guys have seen, they are still not proficient in English and could not speak a single English word. I need this video to be shared, not just among truck drivers on social media and various platforms, but it needs to be shared to the news media. It needs to be shared to politicians. How many times have you seen DOT bragging about how many non-domiciled drivers that they've put out of service for failing to pass the English proficiency test, as though they're somehow making the roadways safer? But as you guys can see from the damage to my truck, ultimately it's a publicity stunt at best, because these drivers are climbing right back into their truck after they cause these accidents or get these out of services and continuing to pose hazards on the road. You asked what happens when a driver gets put out of service for failing an English test. The answer is they continue to drive that truck until they take somebody's life.